Norse mythology takes us on a journey from ice and fire at the dawn of the universe to fire and ice that will destroy the world, telling us marvelous tales about the Norse gods, the Yggdrasil tree connecting the 9 realms, the giants, the dwarfs, and the end of the world, Ragnarok, that will drown all realms in fire and ash. Today, with the expansive reach of Marvel phases 1, 2, and 3, characters like Thor, Loki, and Odin are hardly strangers, but the origins of these characters are still something many may not know. Before time existed and the world was created, unlike Greek or Japanese mythology, which only features an endless void, people of Scandinavia, including those who settled on the island of Iceland, believed there was a place called Niflheim, the coldest and darkest land, a place where only mist and ice ruled. Alongside Niflheim, there was another place called Muspelheim, the land of fire, the home of fire giants and demons, ruled by a giant named Surt. And between these 2 realms, there was nothing, an empty void called Ginnungagap. One thing is quite certain: where there's water from rivers, there's life, and the myths about the gods are no exception. In the icy land of Niflheim, there was a place called Hvergelmir. This was the origin of 11 rivers, the birthplace of all life, and the place where everything would eventually return. Among these 11 rivers, one in particular stands out: Elivagar. It slowly dripped into the endless void, creating a new frozen region. This created a new ice landscape that brought Niflheim closer to Muspelheim. And when ice meets fire, what happens? The ice melts, and the first giant, Ymir, is born. But that's not all. It also created a giant cow made of ice named Audhumla. These 2 creatures lived off one another. Ymir fed off the cow's milk to survive, but what did the cow eat? Who knows, it wasn't mentioned. Ymir lived well and slept soundly, but like all good myths, the unbelievable soon happened. While Ymir was sleeping, his sweat created 2 giants, 1 male and 1 female. And from his feet grew a 6-headed giant. Maybe he was sweating because it was too hot, who knows? Like his father, the 3 brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve, were raised on the milk of Audumla, the giant cow. This cow wasn't being led around, but after being drained of so much milk, it was probably on the verge of becoming an addict, looking for something else to feed off. Born where you grow. Audumla went to lick the biggest ice blocks. Not sure if they were nutritious, but it was enough to satisfy its hunger. But the more it licked, the stranger the situation became. The first time it licked, human hair began to grow. The second time, a human head sprouted. The third time, a man, tall and handsome, emerged from the stone. This was Buri, the first god. Now, where there's a first, there must be a second, but there's no mention of that here. We skip ahead to when Buri took a wife. No idea who she was, just that she was another ice giant. Together they had a son, Bor. He married Besla, a Jotun from another giant family. The first 2 families had the most powerful children: Odin and his 2 less powerful brothers, Vili and Ve. At the time, the Jotun, or ice giants, were the elite of society, like the corporate giants in South Korea, but other clans would take a long time to catch up, at least in terms of numbers. In the raw survival days, the bigger your numbers, the better your chances. But, as they say, even a worm will turn. Odin, Vili, and Ve made plans for a full counterattack to take victory. They planned to attack Ymir while he slept, which was an unexpected strike. Although Ymir was still groggy from his sleep, he managed to resist. But after taking some serious wounds, he finally succumbed. Technically, these 3 brothers killed their own grandfather. Sounds like a myth, doesn't it? Ymir's death didn't let him rest. His blood caused a great flood that drowned almost the entire Jotun race. Only 2 Jotun survived, Bergelmir and his wife. They fled to a misty land and survived. All other Jotun descended from them. Not that it matters much, but I'm just making the story longer. What was left of Ymir created the world. Yes, you heard me right. Odin dragged Ymir's body to the center of Ginnungagap, and with a magical chant, Ymir's blood turned into water and the oceans. His flesh became the earth, his bones became mountains, his teeth became rocks, and his hair became plants. They threw his brain into the sky and it became clouds. His skull became the sky, and sparks from Muspelheim were thrown onto his skull, which created the stars. Now, if you're wondering where the world and the gods live, most of you familiar with Marvel probably already know it's Midgard, the land in between, simply because it lies between Niflheim and Muspelheim. Odin used Ymir's eyelashes to build a wall around it, probably to prevent fire and ice from flowing in. Afterward, Odin and his brothers went on a walk to see if they could find something else. Out of nowhere, 2 trees appeared, 1 ash, 1 elm. Then, as in most myths, Val carved the trees into the shape of humans, resembling giants, and while they were at it, added joints so they could move. Vili gave them hearts and minds, and finally, Odin breathed life into them. These 2 first humans were named Ask and Embla. The 3 brothers all played a part in creating humans, but For some reason, only Odin gets called the All-Father. Humans were still considered inferior, so they couldn't live among the gods. You know, typical mythology stuff. After their work, the gods built Asgard on the icy fields of Idavol. For those Marvel fans, surprise, surprise. Asgard means home of the Aesir gods. The gods could travel easily between worlds, but the only way to get from Midgard to Asgard was through the Bifrost Bridge, and of course only the gods could use it, which explains why you can't just go walking on the sky. It's easy to see why the people of the North, living in icy, cold lands, would believe they were born of an ice giant. Makes perfect sense, right? The Nine Realms. If you've heard of Norse mythology or watched a few Marvel movies, the term Nine Realms is probably very familiar. Asgard and Midgard are two of those nine realms. The others include Niflheim, the land of mist, Muspelheim, the land of fire, as mentioned, the two origins of all things. Five others not yet mentioned are Jotunheim, the land of giants, Vanaheim, the world of the Vanir gods, Alfheim, the land of light elves, Svartalfheim, the world of the dark elves, and Helheim, the land of the dead. Each realm has its own unique features that suit its inhabitants. Take Muspelheim, the land of fire. It lies to the far south of the Nine Realms, a place filled with only blazing heat, lava, and ash. Muspelheim is home to those colossal fire demons, ruled by the mighty Surtur, one of the key players in Ragnarok. Surtur will wield his flaming sword and drown Asgard in a sea of fire. That's his fate. How it all happens, we'll get into that in a future video. Surtur appears in Thor. Ragnarok is the only one capable of stopping Hela. Without him, Thor would have been toast and there wouldn't be a Thor 5. Before its destruction, Asgard was the home of the noblest gods. The gods who lived there were called the Aesir, and the female gods were the Asinjur. The only way to reach Asgard was through the Bifrost Bridge, managed by Heimdall, the gatekeeper who could see and hear everything in the Nine Realms, making it one of the safest places ever. Asgard's most famous wonder is Valhalla, Odin's massive hall. It's so vast it has 540 doors, each big enough for 800 warriors to pass through at once. At the center of the Nine Realms lies Midgard, surrounded by an enormous ocean that's impossible to cross. This is, of course, Earth, so we don't need to elaborate much. Next, we have Jotunheim, the world of giants, covered mostly by ice and dense forests. These giants are the Aesir gods' greatest enemies. The giants primarily live near rivers, hunting fish and animals from the woods. The ongoing battle between the giants and the Aesir gods stems from the hatred of Ymir. But of course, there are exceptions. Loki also comes from Jotunheim, but he was accepted by the Aesir and lived in Asgard. Loki, much like Zeus in Greek mythology, significantly adds depth to the Norse mythology. With gods, demons, and humans, it's only fitting that there are also elves. Vanaheim is considered the home of the Vanir gods, known as the elves because they are masters of magic. They are also recognized and respected for their talents, wisdom, and their ability to predict the future. Vanaheim represents the world of water, symbolized by gentle winds that bring life. Another creature often found in mythology is the spirit. Alfheim, the world of light, is the perfect place for these creatures. Alfheim is located next to Asgard and is the paradise for those beings who love light. The light elves are considered the guardian angels of Freyr who rules over Alfheim. These light elves are responsible for overseeing nature and even childbirth. They can help or hinder humanity with their vast magical powers. You could say they were humanity's first teachers. Additionally, they inspire art and music. With light, there must be darkness, and no place illustrates this better than Helheim, the world of death. This is where all the dead, thieves, murderers, and evil gods who cannot enter Valhalla are sent. Valhalla is one of Odin's great halls in Norse mythology, a place for warriors who died heroically in battle. They are welcomed by the Valkyries, the female warriors, who take them to Valhalla. Returning to Helheim, it is ruled by Hel, the most feared death goddess in Norse mythology. Helheim is a cold and lonely place where anyone who enters is consumed by darkness and sorrow. The idea of joy or happiness here is completely foreign. Another fate of Hel and her realm is their eventual participation in the god-killing side of Ragnarok, the moment when all the gods meet their end. But it's important to note that Helheim is simply where the dead go to exist. There's no torture involved. Some records suggest that Helheim lies just below Midgard because we bury the dead underground. However, deep within the earth and caves lies the realm of the dwarves, known as Svartalfheim. The dwarves are masters of craftsmanship, particularly in forging weapons. The gods of Asgard received many powerful gifts from the dwarves, like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, and Odin's famous spear Gungnir. The materials to forge these powerful items were mined from the caves where the dwarves lived. The nine realms are connected by the Yggdrasil tree and fall under Odin's rule. Yggdrasil, the world tree, links the realms and is considered a crucial part of both Asgard and Norse mythology. Therefore, it is frequently under threat. Odin and the other gods maintain and protect Yggdrasil to preserve balance and life in the universe. Odin and his brothers helped build the city of Asgard from the very beginning. Part of it was to defend against enemies, and part of it was for Odin to have a worthy base to rule from. After all, it wouldn't look right for the Allfather to live on the street corner. Once the basics were done, the most important thing for a world to thrive is rules, or better yet, laws. And no one better than Odin himself set up the rules and laws to maintain order and peace between the gods and other residents of Asgard. After all, it's what a king does, right? And that's why the saying goes, the son of a king remains a king, while the monk in the temple picks up leaves. No wonder Thor and Loki fought over Asgard's throne later on. Along with passing the throne to his family, Odin also set many other rules, such as creating a legal system to govern the actions of the gods and citizens of Asgard. These laws were considered sacred and had to be followed strictly to ensure fairness and order. Odin encouraged both the gods and humanity to live by high values, like loyalty, courage, and self-respect. Known for his deep philosophical and moral wisdom, whether Odin will deviate from these principles in the future remains to be seen. In some situations, the gods were allowed to use force to prevent chaos and ensure the survival and growth of the universe. But the most important thing was punishment for those who violated the rules. Odin set strict punishments for rebels and anyone threatening the peace and stability of Asgard. These punishments were not unlike the medieval tortures we often think of. To carry out all of this, Odin didn't just need strength, he also needed superior intellect. Odin was the most skilled warrior, the one who united all the gods under one banner. But no matter how detailed the stories of his battles are, they can never overshadow the power and wisdom that Odin emanates. His journey for knowledge was as arduous as the pilgrimage of the Tang monk and his disciples in Journey to the West. But the rewards Odin gained were incomparable. He uncovered the secrets of the universe. Not only that, but his knowledge became the most valuable tool to turn the tide of battles, turn enemies into friends, and even make women listen. Odin could have anything he desired. Of course, everything comes at a price, and the price for such knowledge was never cheap. Odin's journey for wisdom and knowledge was a long one. We all know Yggdrasil connects the nine realms, but it's not just a coincidence that it stands in such a central position. What it connects isn't just the nine worlds, but the knowledge of almost all of humanity. For someone as ambitious as Odin, it could never be something to overlook. Yggdrasil is described as a giant tree with 3 layers of roots, branches, and leaves, each representing a different world in the Norse universe. The top roots of Yggdrasil extend down into Asgard, the world of the Aesir gods, but what's most important is that each root leads deep into a sacred well of knowledge. Odin rules over Asgard, but the most important well is the Well of Urd. It's guarded by 3 fate goddesses, the Norns: Urd, the past; Verdandi, the present; and Skuld, the future. Every day the Norns gather water from this well to nourish Yggdrasil. Odin, sitting high above, could easily observe all the activities of the gods. But unlike the gods on Mount Olympus, Odin craved only one thing: knowledge. And what the 3 Norns offer him is the ability to see the fate of all things. Simply put, it's like super high-level observation hockey. Around the Well of Urd, the Norns sit, weaving a complex web of fate with living threads, representing the destinies of all people and gods. The Well of Urd is often described as the place where the Norns gather to decide fate, and where the mysteries of life and death can be resolved. From his magical throne, Odin watches the work of the Norns. What fascinates him is how they manage to do it. Odin, like anyone else, couldn't help but wonder about his own fate. When the past, present, and future are all laid out before you, what do? Odin always sought to ask the Norns about everything they knew. Their knowledge was nearly all-encompassing. And for an ambitious god like Odin, it was the one thing he always craved. But as with all things, there's a price to pay. And the price of the Norns' knowledge was simple: nothing. They carved everything into the tree with rune symbols, symbols that only they could understand. These runes carved into Yggdrasil's trunk etched the fate of the 9 realms, containing secrets that no one, not even the highest gods, were meant to know. The only ones who could read them were the main characters, those destined for greatness, and of course the main characters had to go through loss and suffering to reach the top. Odin, born with almost everything, had to go through the highest price of all. That price was Odin himself. After days of suffering and learning, Odin decided to perform a ritual to merge with the runes. Holding his powerful spear, Gungnir, Odin pierced himself, hanging from the tree. How many could do that? From the point where he was struck, Odin stared unblinkingly into the deepest part of the world tree, into the Well of Urd. For 9 days and 9 nights, Odin did not blink, nor did he make any unnecessary movements. His sole action was watching. Any form of help was forbidden, and it was considered a grave offense. For 9 days, there was not a single drop of water, not a single grain of rice, and no one dared disobey the command. Everything had been answered, though I still feel that it's a little light. On the final night, Odin's eye blazed with the fire of a blazing star. Odin looked through everything, piercing through layers of knowledge, gazing deep into the truth, or more precisely, the very bottom of the well. Down there lay his own one-piece treasure, the knowledge that Odin longed for. The runes danced for their true master. They showed him things Odin had never thought of. This was the knowledge of all things. At this point, the myth says, "I have been cultivated and have become wiser. I have matured and developed. I have learned each word and remembered each one. I have experienced every battle and reflected on every lesson." That was all Odin said before he collapsed and was taken away for special medical care. And of course, he survived and continued on his path of self-enrichment. But the greed of man is never enough, let alone that of the gods. Even with the knowledge of the gods in his grasp, there were still things Odin could not understand. Things that puzzled him no matter how much he thought. It was like when you're unsure whether you're angry or not, or when you say you'll eat anything but don't really mean it. At first, Odin didn't think much of these things, but then events kept piling up and he couldn't ignore them. The climax came when the two ravens, Hugin, thought, and Munin, memory, flew everywhere, observing everything, before perching on Odin's shoulders. They reported seeing nothing but shadows and strange symptoms. Ravens, representing death, made this seem far from promising. Adding to this, Odin's wife, the goddess Frigg, had a sense that urged him to seek greater wisdom to face the darkness ahead. The source of wisdom beyond the Well of Urd could only be the mother of Urd's well. As our elders say, the one who gave birth to you knows best. That place was the spring of Mimir, the spring of knowledge. It was located near Jotunheim, the land of giants, the greatest enemies of the gods. Another journey awaited, and Odin, when crossing Midgard, the realm of humans, would sometimes appear as a regular man, and at other times as a giant when reaching the giant realms. Thus, a new name was given, Vegtam, the Wandering Man. This was a journey filled with hardships. Moreover, Odin didn't know what the cost of his quest would be. He kept walking until he met a giant riding a stag. Odin walked alongside him and struck up a conversation. "Hey, friend, where are you rushing off to so urgently?" "I'm Vafthrudner, the wisest among the giants." Odin recognized the name immediately. Many had dared challenge this giant in contests of intellect. The result, however, was always the same. They became headless knights. The rules were simple. The giant would ask 3 questions, and if the other answered all correctly, anything would be theirs. If they failed, they would lose everything. The first question, what is the name of the river that marks the boundary between Asgard, the realm of the gods, and Jotunheim, the land of giants? "Ifling," Odin replied. "It's a river so cold it pierces the bones, freezing skin but never solidifying into ice." Vafthrudner seemed a bit taken aback but still confident, as there were 2 more questions. The second question, what are the names of the horses that the god of day and the god of night ride to cross the sky? "Skinfax and Hrimfax." Vafthrudner was shocked, for only the gods and the wisest giants knew the names of these horses. The last hope for the giant was the name of the battlefield for the final battle. "Vigard Field, my friend," Odin answered. "It stretches 100 miles in all directions." "Do you dare claim to be wiser than a god?" Vafthrudner asked, impressed. Then it was Odin's turn to ask a question. He asked about the last whispers he heard near his son Baldur, the demon child of Odin. Upon hearing this, the giant immediately jumped down from his stag, eyes wide in shock, staring at Odin. Only Odin could answer that question. "How could I possibly know? Could it be that you are Odin? The secret to making a woman alluring. Now, you may keep your head, but you must tell me what Mimir demands in exchange for the spring of knowledge." "Your right eye," Mimir said, and nothing could change that. Odin spared the giant and reflected on the price. He stood there, pondering. He demands my right eye? How expensive the price for wisdom is. Perhaps, he thought, I don't need wisdom anymore, since after all he was the one who held the world in his hands. While pondering this, Odin changed his direction and traveled south, where he encountered the fierce face of Surtur, wielding his flaming sword. Surtur, a formidable foe, would soon join the giants in their final battle with the gods. Thinking of this, Odin veered off toward the north, unaware of the direction he was taking. There he listened to the sound of water rushing out of the cold, dark world of Niflheim. He realized he could not let the world be consumed by Surtur's flames, or be left to turn to dust and fade into the cold, dark void of Niflheim. As the supreme god, Odin had to take responsibility to save the world from destruction. To do so, there was only one way: to follow his wife's advice and learn all the knowledge of humanity. Odin went straight to the spring of wisdom. Mimir was always there, watching over it with his piercing eyes. Mimir had been drinking from the spring of wisdom every day, so he immediately recognized Odin and greeted him. "Odin, father of the gods, you must know why you're here." Odin gently took out his eye. From now on, he would be known as the One-Eyed God. He, the god, took his own eye, enduring the pain without a single cry. Mimir took the eye, dropped it into the water, and it slowly sank, shining brightly at the bottom. A cold wind blew, and the leaves wrapped around him, making it feel like he was channeling energy. Mimir took a horn and drew water for Odin to drink. With each sip, Odin became drunk on knowledge. Each sip brought him wisdom Odin had never imagined. That day, Odin saw the future more clearly than the present, understanding things that would happen, and even things that would never happen. The price of knowledge was pain and loss. Just as humanity's achievements came at the cost of the blood and bones of those who came before, so too would the past, present, and future remain the same. I lost an eye to see the world clearly. Now, I don't just see with my eyes, I see with my soul. Odin paid the price, and that price was still very cheap compared to what he received.